Well, hello everybody.
Live.
Welcome
Hello,
again.
hello.
It's Friday night. We're going to continue watching the court case. Oh gosh, I can't get comfortable yet, but we're going to continue watching the court case in Atlanta for DA. Is it Fannie? I can never pronounce her first name right, but
Fannie Willis, I mean.
yeah, whatever. And today they had final arguments for the judge to consider whether or not to remove her. Oh poop. I might need to step away for a second because I didn't get a glass. I got my vino here, but I don't have a glass.
You're good.
So we'll start the video and then I'm gonna go and get my alcohol on. But today they had the final arguments. And so basically all the attorneys got to stand up and give their argument for why they think that she should be removed. And then the state gets to obviously make their final statement to argue against removal, which I found fascinating because all of the attorneys for the defendants were very clear and succinct, but when we get to the portion of watching the state attorney, it was just kind of like all over the place and he couldn't stop saying every other word. So it was a little disappointing because I really wanted to hear the actual legal arguments for why she shouldn't be removed. So it kind of just it kind of reinforces everybody's thoughts that she's going to be removed. And I don't think that the judge is going to have any choice in the matter because, I mean, just the appearance of impropriety at this point is kind of like, just take her off. Just,
Pretty
I mean,
obvious.
yeah, I mean,
Right.
if anything, she should have just removed herself if she wanted to save any of her political or her ambition at this point because
Or
she's up for
just,
reelection.
right.
Or to save the case. I mean, realistically, that's what she's trying to do is she's trying to save the case. She's not going to be able to try this case and win the way it is right now. I just don't see a path for that.
And just the rule of law has been abused here in this case.
Well, I
In my
mean, we really
opinion.
haven't had a chance. Yeah. I mean, nobody's really had a chance to see what she has as far as like how she can even get to a RICO case. Because in order to get to a RICO case, from what I understand, it has to be pretty strong. And I don't think that she's going to be able to meet the burden of proof in order to prove that there was an organized, because that's what it is. It's basically about organized crime, right? The RICO statutes or whatever, it's all about organized crime. I don't think that she's going to be able to get to that because, I mean, just one comment by the president doesn't make it organized. I can't even think of the word right now, but there has to be a preponderance of proof. And I just don't, it's kind of curious to me is obviously this went to the grand jury and the grand jury saw a lot of evidence. And I wonder what that evidence was in order for them to be able to reach the conclusion that he had to be charged. Like I wonder what if they're willing to lie and cheat, because that's basically what they did, is they lied and cheated against their spouse, and she lied and cheated to the her people that voted for her. If she did that, then how much more damage was there at the other end?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, before a grand jury, it's a preponderance of the evidence, whereas if you go to trial, it's, guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. So there's two different, and I mean,
Burdens of proof.
burdens of proof, exactly. So when you go to before a grand jury, it's very superficial, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like it could be or couldn't be, kind of thing. It's
Needs to
not
be
that they have
examined.
hard evidence or they have, it's not like that at all. It's quite the contrary. It's just like, do you think this is a possibility? Then it goes forward. You know what I mean?
Mm.
It's really, I think people's impression of what the grand jury is, and I'm not trying to minimize the
Practice.
importance of a grand jury, but I'm just saying there's two levels of burdens of proof, like,
No,
that.
I understand that it doesn't. It's not like she's trying the case to the grand jury at that point. She's just presenting
Mhm.
her findings, and they're going to determine whether that they think that there is a charge to be made.
And just so you know, I think, if I'm not mistaken, also in a grand jury situation, the defendant's attorneys do not get to present anything. They
Right.
can give, yeah, so I mean, it's like it's very one-sided.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure I'm
Yeah,
a
I know
real
the attorneys for the defense don't really get to present
no.
any counter proof or explain the proof. Yeah, and I mean, I get the whole just, but if in my mind, if they're willing to, if they're not above board in something as simple as their relationships, then how much above board are they on the evidence?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, all right. So let's play this sucker. See if I think that we got completely done with her testimony, right?
Uh, well, we were
She was going to
in,
present her next witness,
I think we were in the middle of that, her friends,
her
weren't
friend's
we?
testimony. I
Yes.
think that we got to the end of her friend's testimony, and she was going to present her next witness. But let's just hit play here. You tell me if you can't hear it on your end.
Okay.
I need to get rid of those chats. Let's see if I can make it bigger. I don't need that either. I need to change it to theater mode. Yeah, there we go.
Better. So I got my drink.
You got your drink. Let me see. I don't know how to fast forward just a little bit without messing it all up.
And for judge in 2016.
You did.
All right, hang on. Looks like she's just.
You swear.
Now he's going to swear in. Okay, while they're doing all that, I'm going to go
I do.
run and get my drink.
My name's Nathan Wade, Nathanwade.
Good morning, Mr. Wade.
Good morning.
Prior to filing this motion to disqualify, you and I were friends, correct?
Yes,
And in fact, I supported you when you ran for judge in 2016.
you did.
I wore your shirts. My kids wore your shirts.
Mr. Merchant,
Signs.
your personal opinions have no relevance.
Okay.
And
I-
I mean that in the best way.
That's
All right.
completely fine. I
Let's
will
get to
move
the
on.
point.
Thank you. No. totally fine. Thank you. You filed for divorce from your wife on November 2nd, 2021.
Yes, ma'am.
And in that divorce proceeding, did you file answers, things such as interrogatories?
I did.
Okay. And so interrogatories are where you're responding to things that basically answers that the other side is asking.
Yes, ma'am.
And I've got your complaint for divorce. I'm just going to mark it for the record as it is Defendant's Exhibit 2. The first interrogatories that you answered, those were December 27th, 2021. Is that right?
Thereabout. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And in those, you were asked different things, but those are sworn. You actually swear to those. You verify them, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so that verification is where you're swearing under oath that everything in it is true.
Yes, ma'am.
And let's see, you were asked if you had any documents which relate to the purchase of gifts by you to any person other than the defendant with whom you have or had a relationship, romantic relationship from the date of your marriage, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you responded under oath that you didn't have any documents to that.
That's correct.
You again responded to an interrogatory. You updated those responses on May 30th, 2023.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you actually sent those directly to opposing counsel in the divorce?
Yes, ma'am. I think so.
But in that one, you answered none again to that question, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So May 30th, 2023, you said that you didn't have any documents showing any purchase of anything with someone that you had a romantic relationship with.
I believe the interrogatory was gifts.
Okay.
Not anything, gifts.
And I have it if you want to take a look.
Yeah, we got to be specific about that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to mark, okay, so just for the record, I've got your complaint for divorce marked as number 2. I've got the verification and the interrogatories from 2021. I'm going to mark those as 3. And then your May 30th, 2023, I'm going to mark as 4. Judge, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Thank you. That is what I marked as 4. This is what I marked as 3.
She started
Thank you,
with
Judge.
trying, just establishing that she supported him during
All
his
right, if
campaign,
you take a look at what
et
I
cetera, et
marked
cetera.
as 2, 3, and 4.
The judge stopped her.
Just see if you recognize those.
I do.
And are those, that's your divorce complaint, and then your 2021 interrogatory and your 2023 interrogatory, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, are they a fair and accurate representation of what is filed in that case?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd move to admit those into evidence, Judge.
And this is 2, 3, and 4.
It's 2, 3, and 4, yes.
All right. Any objection from the state?
The divorce. I don't think it's on the district.
No objection to 3 and 4, and subject to Ms. Merchant's representation that 2 is a filing of divorce. I just don't, the divorce complaint, I don't have that in front of me, but subject to that representation, no objection.
All right. And by show of hands, any objection from other defense counsel? Seeing none, defendants 2, 3, and 4. This should be Romans. Well, we'll just call them 2, 3, and 4 admitted without objection.
I thought she was going to object for a
That
second.
interrogatory that you filed in 2023, that's the one where you said no, that you didn't have any documents relating to the purchase of gifts, that you had a romantic relationship with someone, right?
Which interrogatory are we talking
Number
about?
4, 2023.
Which number in the interrogatory?
Number 4.
Oh,
So
spicy there.
which number interrogatory are you referring to?
It's Defendant's Exhibit number 4.
I have Defendant's Exhibit 4 here.
Uh-huh.
Which number interrogatory are we referring to?
Oh, which number out of the question?
Yes, ma'am.
Hold on. It is number 20, 24, 25, 26, basically, all of those.
Let me check and see which one I lied about.
Ms. Merchant, does it have a number 24? Can you point me to it? Yeah.
Oh, which was you? Oh, this one.
You know what's the pathetic thing about all this is that, you know what? Nobody would have cared if they hadn't lied.
Right.
It's supposed to be number. Wait, number.
It became salacious because they lied.
Mm-hmm.
I guess they're all numbered 1. So number 1 again, and then the third number 1.
Perhaps you can find the page number or something. So
He
the
didn't
witness
put page
knows.
numbers on. He didn't put any on when he filed it at all. I don't know how to tell you what number 1, because when you responded, you put number 1 on all of them.
Can you
So
just point to it?
In other words, you're an idiot.
this one, I'm talking about this number 1 where it's tapped. There's 2 number
It's
1s.
number 1.
Okay,
And there's no page number, but it is the second page.
all
This
right.
is where fuzzy math
They're
becomes a
asking if you have
problem.
any receipts for restaurants, hotels, bars, things like that.
The first number 1,
I believe it's the second number 1.
the second number 1.
I mean,
my God,
these
it's a
are
number one.
attorneys.
So it asks you if you have any receipts for things like restaurants, bars, hotels, things like that, where you accompanied a member of the other sex romantic partner, correct?
It says identify any and all occasions.
Okay,
which-
and so
So,
go through it with you.
So
It says to identify any and all occasions where you entertained a member of the other sex, okay, who's not related to blood,
Mhm.
and including dining, drinking, restaurants, bars, pubs, hotels, all of that. Okay, and what was your answer to that?
none.
no.
I never took anybody.
Pinocchio.
None.
None. Okay, so May 30th, 2023.
Really?
You prepared this document,
I did.
Wow.
submitted it,
I did.
and it says none as far as entertaining a member of the opposite sex.
It does.
Okay, no hotels, no bars, no restaurants.
Correct.
Okay. You again updated that. Let's see, you updated it on December 22nd, 2023. And I'm gonna mark that as defendant's number 5, and I have copies. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then you updated it once again on January 26th, 2024, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, there's that one. May I approach the witness again, Judge?
Is that what you're marking as defense exhibit 6?
Yes, Judge, I'm marking number 6 is the January 26th, 2024 interrogatory, and then that one. And then number 5 is the December 22nd, 2023 interrogatory response.
All right. Are you tendering those at this time?
Yes, I am.
All right. Any objection from any counsel to defense exhibit 5 and 6?
Yes.
No objection.
Thank you, Ms. Cross. Seeing none others.
Lovely, I have for you. So now that you have those, let's just talk about those for a minute. Those were verified, so sworn under oath.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And one of them was December 22nd, and then of this last year, so last December, and then one was just recently submitted in January, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
This judge is not correcting him to say yes.
In May 10th, 2023, Judge Thompson heard a motion to compel in your divorce case as well, correct?
It just shows
Yes.
lack of respect
You
for the
actually
court.
Respect for the court, for the law.
Yeah, I'm going to object to
For
the
the law.
relevance of
Ms. Merchant.
that.
His credibility is relevant, Judge, and if he was held in willful contempt for failing to provide answers and documents, I think that's relevant to this court.
How is that a prior false act or crime of conviction or anything else allowed for impeachment under the rules of evidence?
I'm not offering it as a prior bad act or something like that. I'm offering it towards his credibility, Judge, which you get to determine. If he's made misrepresentations in these pleadings, you're here to determine whether or not he's telling the truth or not. So if another court has held him in contempt and that's part of the divorce proceeding, I think it's relevant.
But just contempt generally can be for many different things. Like but a failure to produce is not necessarily a false act, right?
Right, and he's welcome to explain that.
He may not have to. Ms. Cross.
I object to the relevance of that. That's clearly not a proper impeachment we're going pretty far afield into divorce matters that don't have any direct relevance to anything that's pending before the court. But I'd look at the relevance of that and we further.
All right, not saying that being a proper grounds for impeachment, it's sustained.
Okay, let's talk about this December 22nd, 2023 verification. I tabbed it for you. Again, they asked you if you had any documentations showing proof of this relationship, proof of any relationship, correct?
I'm going to object to the phrasing of that question. I don't believe that's an accurate read of the interrogatory.
All right, let's be precise, Ms. Merchant.
And you please read it. I want to make sure I'm accurate. Please read it.
Which number?
This one actually has a number. I tabbed it for you, so you should be able to open right to the page. It's number 22. The question specifically is if you have any tangible evidence of any nature in your possession or control or any other person or entity which relates to any manner of your activities to any person with whom you've had a sexual relationship during your marriage. Tangible evidence is notes, cards, letters, photos, films, recordings, documents, tapes, video recordings, receipts, invoices, and other tangible evidence.
Yes.
Okay. And you answered that you did not have any documents to that effect, correct?
Correct.
And that was on December 22nd, 2023?
Yes, ma'am.
You updated those responses again after the motion to disqualify was filed, though, correct?
When was the motion filed?
January 8th, 2024, when I filed the motion to disqualify you and alleged that you had a romantic relationship with Miss Willis.
Yes, ma'am.
After that, you updated these responses, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And so your new responses, you now changed your answer from that you didn't have any of this to you're asserting the privilege under 24.5.505, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And both of these are under oath.
Yes, ma'am.
You also updated your response to the question about spending time with someone other than your spouse for dinner, drinks, things at restaurants, bars, hotels, or the other person's home, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So in December of 2023, you said no to all that. And then in January, after I filed my motion, you said privilege to all that, Fifth Amendment privilege.
Yes, ma'am.
And just to be clear, was it?
Sorry, I'm going to object.
So you didn't say yes, you just said
I think it was a statutory privilege and that's
That's what I was
quite
just-
different.
That's what I was just about to ask him. So that privilege covers infamy or Fifth Amendment privilege, correct?
So it was a privacy privilege is what I updated my response to do. Once
Okay.
you filed your motion to intervene in my divorce action, I then figured that you were in talks with my former wife's divorce lawyer.
Okay.
And because of that, I asserted a privacy privilege because I didn't want the
you didn't want to
proceedings
get
of my
caught.
divorce to bleed over into the proceedings in this case, which is the case that obviously you're involved in.
So your answers in December of 2023 that you didn't have any documents about any travel that you took with Miss Willis, that wasn't true though, correct?
They didn't ask me about any documents regarding Miss Willis.
A romantic partner. They asked you for documents regarding a romantic partner. So I'm sorry, I inserted Miss Willis's name. Let me rephrase the question. They asked you for documents about travel with a romantic partner in December 2023. And you under oath said you did not have any of those, correct?
I did not.
Okay.
And they asked me about gifts.
Right.
I've never purchased a gift for Miss Willis.
And they asked you about receipts for dinner, receipts for drinks, hotels, bars, and restaurants. And you said you did not have any of those.
I did not and do not have any receipts for any of those things.
Okay.
Here's
And part of
where-
the civil discovery, they say that even if you don't have it in your pocket, if it's within your purview, you got to get it and give it to them, correct?
Your Honor, I'm going to object again to the relevance of the questions about the scope of civil discovery. I think she's asked him about statements he made in pleadings. The answers are already in the record and
All right, to the extent you're trying to establish a prior mistruth, Ms. Merchant, I'll allow you to ask a few more follow-ups, but if it's not there, we have to move on.
Thank you. So in 2023, December, you said you didn't have any receipts.
I do not have any receipts. I did not have any receipts.
here's
But
where
you
the
did travel
splitting
with
hairs
Miss
come
Willis in 2023, correct?
I did.
And you traveled with her in 2022, correct?
I did.
And you traveled with her in 2021, correct?
No.
So you only traveled with her in 2022 and 2023.
2022 and 2023 is what I recall.
That's what you recall?
Yes.
Okay.
Liar,
So you
liar,
just don't
pants on
remember if you
fire.
traveled with her in 2021?
2022 and 2023 is what I recall.
Is what you recall. My question is, did you travel with her in 2021?
I'm not recalling any travel in 2021.
So it's not yes or no, you just don't remember?
I'm not recalling any travel in 2021.
So you did not travel with her in 2021.
Your Honor.
Oh, this has been covered. Let's keep going.
Thank you. Let's see, you
such
you
a
filed an
liar.
affidavit in this case, correct?
I did.
Okay, and I marked that already and gave it to the state as number 1. So that's exhibit number 1. May I approach, Judge?
You may.
Thank you. In that affidavit, you swore under oath, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And in that affidavit, you swore that, well, first of all, do you recognize the affidavit?
I do.
Okay. Did you sign the affidavit under oath?
I did.
And you gave this affidavit specifically to refute the allegations that I had raised.
Yes, ma'am.
Nobody forced you to sign this?
No, ma'am.
You chose to sign it
I did.
and you signed it on purpose to admit into court
I
to
did.
refute allegations?
I did.
You signed it specifically to prove that you were not in a relationship with Willis prior to November 2021, correct?
Correct.
And you were a lawyer when you signed it?
I was.
And you're still a lawyer today, correct?
I am.
When were you barred?
1999.
And you believe that your relationship with Miss Willis is subject to attorney-client privilege, correct?
I'm going to object to that, Your Honor. I don't think that's factually correct. I don't think that's a relevant question, and I don't think it's appropriate to question this witness about the scope of his
It's very
attorney-client
relevant.
privilege. He's got an attorney who can speak for him for that, but questioning the witness is inappropriate.
No, it's not.
All right, so a lot to unpack there. The question is simply that does he believe there's a relationship that exists in terms of attorney-client privilege between him and Miss Willis? Is that accurate,
Yes,
Ms.
Judge.
Merchant?
It was. I asked
Okay.
if he believed his relationship with Miss Willis is subject to attorney-client privilege.
Okay, I don't see why yes or no would be barred.
Maybe I'm not understanding the question. If the question is, does Mr. Wade and District Attorney Willis have an attorney-client relationship?
It is not.
There's no foundation for that. If the question to the witness is, does his relationship with District Attorney Willis impact his attorney-client relationship with his divorce attorneys?
That's not the
That I
question
don't
that
think
you
is an
asked.
appropriate question for that witness. First, first, I believe is a proper phrasing. The second, I think there's been a representation that Mr. Wade preserves and doesn't waive anything. And so I think asking him particular questions in order to potentially backdoor a waiver is inappropriate. And that's my objection.
All right, if we're just trying to, again, assess where a privilege does or does not exist, and we're not actually getting into it, I think we can establish those, parameters. But Ms. Merchant, can you rephrase the question based on that concern, and we'll see where we are?
Yes. Do you believe that your relationship with Miss Willis is subject to an attorney-client privilege? Not if you and Miss Willis have one, but do you believe that relationship is subject to one?
I'm going to object to that question as it's phrased. In what context? Any conversation with his attorneys is privileged. That I think is clear. What's not clear to me from that question is Ms. Merchant asking in the context of your communication with your attorneys? Is that or outside that context? Is it?
Right. And Ms. Merchant, I think we need to figure out what are we getting at with this? I'm
just trying to figure out if he thought that their relationship is subject to an attorney-client privilege. I mean, it's been asserted. I think it's going to be asserted, and that was all I was asking.
I mean, the actions themselves wouldn't be at issue. It's more
If
communications.
someone saw them, someone had knowledge of it. Is that
Right.
attorney-client privilege? I want to
All right.
know.
Well, I guess I would find his legal opinion on this isn't relevant. We can deal with that as it comes up. So sustained.
In 2022, in this affidavit, you swore that you and Willis developed a personal relationship.
Yes, ma'am.
And you said that didn't develop until 2022, correct?
That's correct.
And that's different from what you said in your pleading in May 2023 in the divorce case, correct?
No, ma'am.
In May 2023, when you were asked if you had if you'd had any affairs, essentially, and you said none.
That's correct.
So in May, you said you had not, in May 2023, in the divorce case, you said you had not had a personal relationship, an affair, a romantic relationship with anyone.
That's correct.
But you told this court in the affidavit that you did have one that started in 2022.
I see
So that
it.
would have been
Do
ongoing.
you see where she's going?
So here, I think there's a distinction, if you'd allow me to explain. The interrogatory
Here's the hair.
asked the question during the course of your marriage.
Or to date. It actually says. or to
I'm
date.
gonna request that the witness be permitted to answer.
Mr. Wade.
So my marriage was irretrievably broken in 2015, ma'am, by agreement. My wife and I agreed that once she had the affair in 2015, that we'd get a divorce. We didn't get a divorce immediately because my children were still in school and I refused to allow them to grow up without their father at the time. So we waited. We waited until the youngest graduated and we dropped her off at college and then filed for the divorce. So if you're asking me about the interrogatory as it relates to having the 2022 relationship with District Attorney Willis, I'm going to say, because my marriage was irretrievably broken, I was free to have a relationship.
So the question, though, was if you had
So
had
why
a
hide
relationship.
it?
And in 2023, you said you did not. And that is different than what you said in this affidavit, correct?
No, ma'am. I said during the course of my marriage. So in
So you believed it
2015,
to-
Let him finish, Ms. Merchant.
so in 2015, my marriage was irretrievably broken. So I did not have a relationship with anyone during the course of my marriage.
And in that interrogatory, they asked you if you had any receipts for travel with someone of the other sex up until the time you were answering. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you said that you didn't. You've already testified to that earlier. But in this affidavit, you said you swore that you had travel expenses and shared expenses on travel with Ms. Willis.
Again, during the course of my marriage, I had no relationship or
Okay.
receipts.
I'm not asking about during the course of your marriage.
Your Honor, I'm gonna ask the witness be allowed to answer the question.
Continue. I have no problem with him answering.
Okay. As it relates to receipts today, I don't have any receipts, ma'am.
So you don't have any travel receipts available to you for any travel that you did with Ms. Willis?
I don't have any receipts. No, ma'am.
No receipts that, so you used your business credit card for these trips, correct?
I use my business credit card for everything.
Okay, yes, you did. You used it for your kids' tuition.
Yes, ma'am.
Used it for personal travel with Ms. Willis.
Yes, ma'am.
And you have receipts from those business credit cards that you have to file with your taxes, correct?
No, ma'am.
No.
I filed a statement. I turn over the statement, and whatever's there on the statement, the accountant looks at it, and the accountant says,
fucking
"Okay,
receipt."
this is personal." Goes over
That's
here.
a
this is business,
receipt.
Goes over here. Here are your taxes.
So you have those statements. We'll call them statements instead of receipts. You have those statements, correct?
I had the statements, yes, ma'am.
But when you answered the interrogatory under oath, you said you did not have anything to show the records of travel with Ms. Willis.
They didn't
I
ask for
answered the
statements.
question.
They
I
asked
had no
for
receipts,
receipts.
ma'am.
You had no receipts, but you had statements.
I ordered the statement, yes, ma'am.
You did order the statement.
I did.
Okay. And so we're just talking to semantics between invoice and statements or receipt. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna object, Your Honor, to the.
Of course you are. Oh my God, that was so painful. All
Yeah.
of that just for him to say, yes, I do have the statements, but they asked me for the receipt and I didn't have any receipt. I'm like, oh my God, you fucking moron.
Yeah, but it just goes to show what depths he will go to hide something. So it
Right.
just shows his manipulation, his
Mhm.
level of manipulation. So if I was a judge and I was sitting here watching this, I would be saying, uh-huh. So if we don't, in other words, unless you're caught red-handed, I mean, you're going to be
It wasn't me.
deceitful.
It wasn't
You're
me.
Yeah, you're showing
Huh?
your ability or capability of deceit. And
Isn't there a song that
that's,
says it wasn't me?
golly,
What's
is that not
can't-
crazy?
and Shaggy or something? I can't remember his name.
Who?
The guy that does the song. It wasn't me.
Oh,
Remember
I
that?
don't.
Caught you red-handed.
I remember what you're
wasn't
saying,
me.
but yeah, it wasn't me. Yeah, they did wasn't it
Yeah,
Ashton
Shaggy.
Kutcher and you're Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis did that commercial, right?
Yeah,
Or
they
it
did the
wasn't
music
me.
video, I think it was.
Right.
Oh my God. I mean, it's just so fucking painful. You know what she's alluding to,
Yeah.
and he knows what she's alluding to, rather than just be like, well, ma'am, I don't have the receipt. I don't have an actual physical copy of a receipt, but I have the statements which I provided.
End
Period.
of story. Mm-hmm.
But because he's a fucking attorney, he has to twist that fucking let's be accurate button
Uh-huh.
and winds up looking like a total jackass.
But it just shows. It just shows his deceit.
And
The
that's
average layperson would be like, this guy's deceitful. He's a liar.
his credibility is completely out the window. I mean, not to mention they had
Mhm.
an affair. They didn't
Right.
tell anybody about the affair because it was a fucking affair. Nobody knows about the affair because it was a fucking affair.
Right. And
Amended.
that bull crap about, oh, our marriage was over in 2015. I chose to stay. Oh, when I hear people say that, it makes me want to vomit because that is just such a lie.
Yeah, just say
It
we had an
is.
open marriage. We both agreed to have, relationships with other people. And so I had a relationship. It was not proper, but I'm human. Everybody's human and fuck it. I don't know.
Mhm.
Then we would
Yeah, he's
understand. But this right here makes it to where he's completely unlikable and completely untrustworthy.
deceitful.
And how in God's name is this person going to try the one most famous person in the world and convince a jury that he's telling the truth? I mean,
As a question, I believe it's been asked and answered several times.
All right, sustain.
Continue on.
Let's see. You also in this affidavit said that no funds paid to you for compensation as your role as special counsel was shared with Willis, correct?
That's correct.
And that you never cohabitated with Willis, correct?
That's correct.
By cohabitation, does that mean that you never spent the night with Willis?
I spent the night with her during
Spent the
travel. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so I just want to qualify your use of the term cohabitation. That means you didn't live together,
That's correct.
but you did spend the night together.
Yes.
When was the first time you spent the night together?
Your Honor.
That's the subject of his affidavit, Judge.
Right, but it might not be the subject of this hearing. So the question is the nature and extent of the relationship. And so if they just spent the night on a single occasion, I don't think we're going to
He doesn't want to hear
document
all
in
that.
detail every single time that happens.
And I don't intend to do that, Judge, but I think what is relevant is when the relationship started. And that's what you had indicated on.
Well, why don't we start with that question and go from there?
And that's what I asked, when the first time he spent the night with her was. That's what I asked.
That's a different question, isn't it?
Okay, so let's not talk about when you spent the night. When did your romantic relationship with Miss Willis begin?
2022.
When? In 2022.
Early 2022.
So you were appointed in November of 2021.
Yes, ma'am.
And your relationship started early. What's early? January? February?
Around March.
Around March. But you two met at an October 2019 judicial conference, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And describe your relationship at that point then.
Which point?
2019.
So I was at a judicial conference to teach a course, if you will, to newer judges. I did that in 2019. As I was exiting the conference, another judge was standing outside who was a friend of mine. I stopped and exchanged pleasantries with her. And standing, talking to her at the time was then Judge Willis. She introduced us at that time. We shook hands, exchanged business cards, and I got into my vehicle and left the conference. So that meeting was probably 3 minutes.
Okay. When was the next time you talked to her?
Didn't talk to her again, probably maybe a month or a month and a half had gone by.
Okay. So you talked to her November, maybe?
Maybe.
On the phone?
On the phone.
Okay. How regularly did you speak with her in 2021 on the phone?
In 2021.
I'm sorry, 2019. I'm so sorry. 2019. How frequently did you speak with her on the phone?
2019, after the meeting, I probably talked to her 2 or 3 times. She would have questions. I was the district rep for the particular district that I sat in.
Okay.
And the judges would, when they would have questions, they sometimes would go to the rep. So she was outside of my district, but she would call me. She felt comfortable calling me to ask me the questions. I don't know if you know the racial makeup of certain benches, but it wasn't very diverse. So she felt comfortable calling me for advice. And she did that. And we had also in common that she was starting a private law practice at the time, and I'd already had mine up and going, and we talked about balancing the demands of the bench with that private practice. So we didn't talk that often, but when she had questions, mostly legal issues that would come up, she would call me.
I just want to make sure, because my question was just how many times, and you said 2 to 3 times, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And in 2022, how frequently did you speak in 2022?
Confuse the
This
question.
is before you were appointed.
I'm sorry, perhaps Ms. Merchants, your timeline, 2022?
I'm sorry, 2020. 2020. How frequently did you speak in 2020?
2020, it was more frequent than 19, obviously, but
More frequent. Can you tell me approximately a month how often you think you spoke with her on the phone?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to the granular detail. I think Mr. Wade can certainly answer however he wants to, but if we're going to go through every time we spoke on the phone, as opposed to generally characterizing the relationship, it would be more detailed than is necessary.
Judge, I'm not going to go through every time they spoke on the phone. I'm asking for generally how frequently they spoke.
I think at that level, that's fine. Overruled.
About how frequently did you speak in 2020?
per month.
I mean, if it was 2 or 3 times that entire year, you can tell me that. If
Oh, no,
it
no,
was
no.
more than that, then you can quantify it by month.
No. We spoke on the telephone often. I mean, I don't know how many. I couldn't give you a amount of times because you remember COVID happened and the world was shut down. But so we spoke on the phone more than 2019, definitely.
Okay, let's qualify it. Before her election in 2020, how frequently did you speak?
Anytime
You
she
mean
wanted a
as she
booty
was
call.
campaigning?
Before the election? Yes, as she was campaigning, before she was elected.
Anytime she wanted a
It's two
booty call.
different animals.
As she was campaigning before she was elected.
Okay, so during the course of her campaign, we didn't talk as much, obviously, because she was busy. Fulton County is a large jurisdiction to cover. So we didn't talk a whole lot, but she did know that I'd gone through the election process. So when things would come up, that she had questions
answer the
about, she would
fucking
call me and
question.
ask me. So
And just to be fair,
sometimes it would
I'm
be
only
some-
Ms. Merchant.
Judge, actually, he's not
So-
asked and answered. And I mean, I don't mind him explaining, but I just wanted to know how many times. I mean, if we talk about every conversation they talked about, I
You gotta let him finish his sentence, and then if you need to redirect him or have me direct him, I can. Mr. Wade, you can continue.
Yes, sir. So sometimes it would be like a 3-second call. She would go, during your election, have you ever seen this? And I would say, no, but here's what I would do. And we'd hang up. She had a lot of professionals working for her, but she trusted my judgment. So she called me. It'd be brief conversation, but
Why did
No.
she trust
so
his
my question
judgment?
was, how frequently did you speak with her
She just met
prior to
him.
her election?
I
Frequently, infrequently?
more than 2019, but it wasn't
Once or twice
everyday
a
thing.
week?
No.
In 2021, before you were appointed in November, so January to November 2021, the only time I'm talking about, how frequently did you speak with Ms. Willis on the phone?
In 2021, then it became frequent.
Frequent.
Yes,
But you did not work at the DA's office at that point, correct?
I did not.
Sorry.
So the affidavit that you submitted, you showed on it, you submitted one record that showed that Ms. Willis had paid a couple $100s for one flight, correct?
Say again?
The affidavit that you submitted to this court
Mm-hmm.
showed that Ms. Willis had paid for one flight several $100s. Is that correct?
No, ma'am. I think that, are you drawing a distinction for her paying for a flight or for her actually booking a flight? Because
Don't split
those are
fucking
two
hairs.
separate things.
I will re-ask it.
Okay.
The affidavit you filed in this court,
Mhm.
you alleged that Ms. Willis paid for one flight. Paid for one flight, correct?
No, ma'am.
You
No,
did not
ma'am.
allege she paid for one flight.
No, ma'am. What I allege is that our travel was split roughly evenly.
That's not what
So
you said.
where you see I have booked the flight or I've paid for a flight with my credit card, what you don't see is that she covered her own flight reimbursement to me. The flights that you see here are the flights that she would have booked with her own resources, with her own card.
And there's one flight, correct?
One flight reflecting that she
submitted
actually booked.
one
He's
flight.
scared. He's scared
Let
to
him finish, and
answer
then
any
you can redirect him.
questions.
One flight.
He
that she
doesn't know what
actually
she
booked,
has.
yes. The other flights I booked, she paid for.
Here's the thing. If you're telling the truth, you know the fact. You know what I mean? You don't, if she said there was one flight that she paid for, yes, there was one flight that she paid for because that's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
I paid for all the other flights. She paid for one. Unless you're lying, unless you're making shit up, you know the answers to the questions.
So the affidavit, you submitted one flight that she booked and paid for.
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor,
Thank you.
I'm going to object to the phrasing of that question. The line in the affidavit is not as Ms. Merchant is representing it. It said examples of the District Attorney Willis purchasing plane tickets for she and I with her personal funds were attached as an exhibit. It certainly did not represent that it was the only example of the District Attorney purchasing flights for Mr. Wade or for compensating other travel.
All right, understand, Ms. Cross. I think that's something you can, it's now on the record, but also something you can take
Oh
on
my.
cross.
And just so everybody's clear, all I asked you is your affidavit, you submitted proof of one flight that she paid for and booked. That's all I'm asking. Correct?
With the explanation, yes, ma'am.
All I needed. You said in the affidavit that you roughly shared travel though, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this roughly sharing travel, you're saying she reimbursed you.
She did.
And where did you deposit the money she reimbursed you?
I was cash. She didn't give me any checks.
So she paid you cash for her share of all these vacations.
Mr. Schaefer, you'll step out if you do that again.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so all of the vacations that she took, she paid you cash for.
Yes, ma'am.
And you purchased all of these
Wow.
vacations on your business credit card, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you included those in deductions on your taxes, correct?
No, ma'am.
No, you did not.
No, ma'am.
Oh, oh, you're gonna get in trouble with the tax
We'll
man.
get to that in just a minute then. Let's see.
We will bring
So
your
the
tax
only thing
returns
that
to
you
the
have-
court.
Actual documentary proof, not cash, is this one receipt that you attached to the affidavit. Is that correct?
Your Honor, I object to that question. That is a mischaracterization of the assertion that is in the affidavit.
I'm asking.
So then
you,
he can deny it. I think he can fend for himself. Ms. Merchant.
is this the only
Wait,
written
even the
proof
judge
that you
is saying
have
like, what
of a
the
trip she
fuck?
paid for?
That I have?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
He can fend for
So
himself. He's a big
you
boy.
submitted the one piece of written evidence that you have that she paid for something. Everything else is in cash. Is that accurate?
No.
That's not accurate. Okay. Please tell me, what other receipts do you have then that show that she paid for things?
I don't have them.
So this is the only receipt that you have to show that she paid for travel.
That I have. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. In your divorce case, you filed a domestic relations financial affidavit, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
The first one you filed was in January 2022, right?
Thereabout. Yes, ma'am.
And those are under oath?
Yes.
And
You also probably
you also
lied.
filed corporate taxes in 2022, correct?
Did.
And tell me about your business. Do you have a partnership or are you a solo practitioner?
As it stands today,
Yes.
so today, I have
I'm
a
unemployed.
separate PC. My law partner has his own separate PC.
Okay.
So, but we're under the same umbrella, under the same roof. So we share expenses, we share income, and we split it.
So are you a partnership?
We are a partnership in the sense of we share expenses, we share income.
Are you registered with the state of Georgia as a partnership?
So
Hmm.
Yeah.
the WBC firm that included myself, Terrence Bradley, and Christopher Campbell, we were registered with the
Mhm.
Secretary of State as a partnership
Right.
for a short period of time.
That
When
was dissolved, though, right, in 2023?
I'm going to object to the witness answer his question.
Mr. Wade, do you have something else to add there?
I did, when things happened and we excused Mr. Bradley from that partnership, it left Christopher Campbell and myself. So now you have two separate PCs under the same umbrella,
Mhm.
sharing expenses and income.
Okay. So let me just narrow down my questions then. Are you registered? And have you been registered at any time in the state of Georgia as Wade and Campbell?
Wade, no ma'am.
You've never been registered as a partnership?
As Wade and Campbell, no
Wade
ma'am.
and Campbell, yes, thank you.
But as Wade Bradley Campbell, yes ma'am.
Wade Bradley Campbell was registered on April 1st, 2021, and administratively dissolved on September 8th, 2023, correct?
Yes ma'am.
Other than that partnership, you have always been registered as law office of Nathan Wade,
Yes ma'am.
not with Chris Campbell.
Correct.
Thank you. So the affidavit
Exhausting.
that you filed in your divorce case, the first one in 2022. I think I'm up to number 7. I'm going to just give you a group of exhibits so we don't have to go back and forth. I'm marking the 2022 as 7. I'm marking the 2024 as 8. I'm marking the credit card statements as 9. And
Oh,
your 10.
I'm going
Copies.
to
I've got
object to taxes because of the relevance of them at this point. The relevance of this entire business structure doesn't seem clear to me as either impeaching or relevant to the issues at the courts, under the court's consideration. But insofar as we're talking about tax returns and other things like that, certainly that's should be redacted, and I would object to the relevance of it.
I agree they should be redacted. I don't agree to the relevance, but I haven't tried to tender them yet, Judge. I'm just marking them right now so that everyone can follow.
All right. And what is the eventual relevance that you were getting at here?
Well, I'm going to ask him because one of the things that we have to show in this case is a personal and financial interest. So, and he's talked about how he was reimbursed for these things. And so I have a right to go into the veracity of those statements.
He was
So
reimbursed and he
let's see,
shouldn't have
7,
been paying
8,
it on his taxes.
9.
That's a fraud on the IRS.
And then,
And that is a
all right. So right now I'm just going to show you what I've marked.
And so then maybe he might
these
be
exceptions.
indicted.
under RICO.
Ah, yes. How ironic.
USB drive I gave you.
Hey, I have to step away for just a second.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
Not other than the drive I gave you. And I'm just.
Yay, can you see? Here, you can see my little pillow.
Can I approach Judge?
You may.
Showing you what I marked as 7, 8, 9, and 10.
All right.
So you have them for your reference.
All right.
So, so these are sworn. I'm first going to ask you about the domestic relations financial affidavit. These are sworn. They're filed under oath, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And the most recent one that you filed was filed on January 26, 2024.
Yes, ma'am.
So a few weeks ago.
Yes, ma'am.
And in that one, you said that you made $9,500 each month, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You said that in 2022, well, in 2022, in this case alone, isn't it true you were paid $303,000, over $303,000?
I was paid.
Yes, in this case, Fulton County, by Fulton County.
I see where you're going. So,
And Judge, I just
In
asked him
a-
to answer the question. If he wants to explain it, I've got no problem with
All right.
that.
Mr. Wade, just listen to the question asked and just answer the question asked. And if
In 2022, isn't it true you were paid over $300,000?
no, ma'am, that is not true.
You were not paid over $300,000 by Fulton County.
No, ma'am, I was not.
Okay. How much were you paid in 2022 then?
So, what I was beginning to explain was Fulton County wrote a check to my firm.
Okay.
What happens at that point is the checks are then deposited, as you have the bank
back.
statement, you see that, and then they are dispersed.
So he is
Between-
explaining. All right, hang on a second. Here's the question.
So $3,000, over $303,000.
Sorry, I'm eating
I was paid.
chips.
Yes, in this case, Fulton County, by Fulton County.
I see where you're going. So,
And Judge, I just
In
asked him
a-
to answer the question. If he wants to explain it, I've got no problem with
All right.
that.
Mr. Wade, just listen to the question asked and just answer the question asked. And if
In 2022, isn't it true you were paid over $300,000?
no, ma'am, that is not true.
You were not paid over $300,000 by Fulton County.
No, ma'am, I was not.
Okay. How much were you paid in 2022 then?
So, what I was beginning to explain was
So
Fulton County wrote a check to my firm.
Okay.
What happens at that point is the checks are then deposited, as you have the bank statements, you see that, and then they are dispersed between the three of us. So there was Mr. Bradley, there was Mr. Wade, and there was Christopher Campbell. A third, a third, a third. So when you ask me if I was paid $300,000, the answer is no. I got a third of that went to my personal firm. Now, once the money was distributed to my personal firm, obviously the expenses come out of that, and I get at the end of the day whatever the profit is. So I did not get $300,000. No, ma'am.
And let me just clarify. My question was not, did you put in your pocket $300,000? My question was the law firm of Nathan Wade paid over $300,000 in the year 2022?
Paid.
Again,
Paid. That's
third
the
of
big
that.
word.
Came to the law firm of Nathan Wade.
So you're saying that the law firm of Nathan Wade did not receive checks from Fulton County government over $300,000 in the year 2022?
That's a different question.
No.
A third of the 300,000 came to Nathan Wade.
Again, I'm not asking what went in your pocket. I'm asking, was the law firm of Nathan Wade paid over $300,000 in 2022?
I'm asking the answer several times.
I know, but I think
Okay.
we're dancing around the point there. So final time, Ms. Merchant.
That's fine. I can move on, Judge. Thank you. So you said
Even
that
the
they
judge is
were
like, we're
dispersed
dancing around
amongst
that.
all of you, or put into an account with all of you. So it's your testimony that for 2022, every check you received from Fulton County government went into an operating account with you, Bradley, and Campbell.
Oh,
No. That's not what I
oh
testified.
no.
So
No, that's not what I said,
the
Judge.
Wade,
That's not what I
Bradley, and
said.
Campbell firm established an account
Mhm.
when we decided to purchase a building in 2022. At that point, every piece of income that came into the entity went into that account.
Okay.
And then after expenses were paid, it was split a third, right? Once that was dissolved, then the funds would go into a different account, my account, one of my accounts. And then I would disperse the funds between now Attorney Campbell and myself, 1/2 and 1/2.
Okay.
Make sense?
It does. Let me be more direct then. So the Synovus operating account that you had for Wade, Bradley, and Campbell,
Yes, ma'am.
the checks from Fulton County from January of 2022 until June 17th, 2022, those checks were deposited in that operating account.
Yes, ma'am.
Starting on July 15th, 2022, the checks you received from Fulton County up until May 26th, 2022, all went into an escrow account that you had at Fifth Third Bank, correct?
No, not all of them.
Not all of them?
Some of them, yes.
So it's your testimony that some of your checks from July 15th, 2022 up until May 26th, 2023, some of them went into an account outside of Fifth Third Bank?
Your Honor, I object to the relevance of the financial transactions.
How much money you made is highly relevant in this case. It's the personal financial business and where the money was. And I mean, it's just a follow up on other things that he's testified to.
And why is how much money he made relevant?
Because he represented it's very relevant. He filed an affidavit with the court saying, with another court, he told another judge that he made $9,500 a month. That's what he swore to. And
All right. So this entire inquiry is just to establish that prior and consistent statement.
yes,
All right. I'll give you a minute or two more to
Okay.
try that, but we're
Great.
gonna have to move on.
thank you. So I know you're saying that you only got a third of the $300,000, but you were paid the firm was paid over $300,000 in 2022, correct?
So, Ms. Merchant, it's not what I'm saying. They're numbers. They're there. It's the truth. The funds were paid. They were divvied between the three of us, going into an operating account.
He
Expenses
doesn't want
paid out
to
of it.
say the
At the end of
amount.
that, the
No,
9,000
because
figures, which
then his divorce
Yes,
gets
ma'am.
fucked.
And let's see,
He's saying it was divvied up, but he doesn't want to get specific.
Right,
As
because
to
then
the
his
amount.
wife can go after more of an alimony. That's why he's obfuscating here.
prior to when you filed for divorce in November
His divorce, he
2021,
filed that he only makes $9,000.
you would use
a month.
Mr. Bradley's credit card to pay for things.
Yeah,
with
but
Ms.
they
Willis,
could have
correct?
given He could
And
have
then
given the other people
I've never used Mr. Bradley's
$20,000
credit card
or,
in my
You've
you
life.
never
know what
used
I
his
mean?
credit
You
card?
didn't have to
Never.
give him a third.
For transactions to anything with Miss Willis, out to dinner, anything like that. Hotels.
I've never used Mr. Bradley's credit card. I've never used anyone else's credit card. Not even my father's, and we have the same name.
And you'd pay back if you ever did use someone's credit card, you'd pay back in cash though, correct?
Ma'am, I've never used someone else's credit card.
You're about to get caught in a lie, boy.
Can you take a
Hmm.
look at the bank records that I gave you?
She wouldn't ask your question if she didn't already have the answer.
It's the
That's right.
largest tab you have.
For the record, which exhibit is this?
It is exhibit, hold on, Judge. Exhibit 9. It should be the largest section you got.
Your Honor, before there starts three
Yes, ma'am.
questions from the exhibits haven't been tendered and I maintain my relevance objection.
All right, let's see what the next question is, and maybe then that objection is going to be highly relevant.
I love that. Let's see what the next question is, and then maybe it might be highly relevant.
Okay.
Right.
Is that an
about
accurate
that?
copy of your Capital One statements that you provided in discovery to? Is that an accurate reflection of your Capital One records
That I provided in discovery to whom?
to your divorce lawyers, or that you provided in the divorce proceeding?
Is the question, does he recognize it by sight?
I'm
I think-
asking if it's his statements, bank
I
statements.
think that is the question.
Well, I mean, it's a thick document, but I believe you if you say that this is what my wife's divorce lawyer gave you. I believe it.
Your name's on every page of that document, correct?
On every page?
Pretty much every page, if not every page.
No, it's not on every page, no ma'am.
They're all Capital One bank records.
They
showing-
are.
Just take your time, look through it. Tell me if there's anything that you think is not yours.
No, they appear to be.
Okay. And those bank records show that
She's a
you
ball
paid
buster.
for travel with Miss Willis.
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, I'm gonna object the relevance of these documents and the
See her
I-
roll her
well, I
eyes.
think, are you tendering exhibit 9?
I'm going to, Judge, and they're highly relevant to the whole
Well, you've
reason.
asked them a question about the contents of them, and they haven't been admitted yet. So why don't we start there?
Thanks. Those show travel that you and Miss Willis took.
Well, so you're asking about the contents of something that hasn't been admitted yet, right?
Well, I'm asking him if that's what it shows because I know that they're going to object on relevance.
Well, first we got to say if it's, you've authenticated it, perhaps. And before we get into other details of what's in it, I think
I can
it needs to
tender
be
them. That's
admitted.
fine. I move to admit them.
All right,
Object on relevance.
on relevance. All right, and on that, overruled. Ms. Merchant.
Thank you. Those records demonstrate that you paid for travel with yourself and Miss Willis, correct?
They should.
Okay. And let's just talk about that travel.
Okay.
The first trip is Belize in March 2023. Is that a trip that you took with Miss Willis?
Are you asking
Did you take a trip with Miss Willis in 2023
to
to
believe?
Belize?
I did.
Did you take a trip to California with Miss Willis in 2023?
I did.
Did you pay for those trips on that credit card?
I used the credit card to book the travel, but understand.
She
that-
paid you back cash.
Well, let me say this. Let's take the Belize trip, for example, since
Okay.
you started there. That was a birthday gift to me, so I paid nothing for that trip. Zero.
But meanwhile, you put
So
it on your credit
the
card.
charges that are on your card, she gave you cash for?
She did.
Okay. So all of the charges,
Excuse me, Your Honor, I believe the witness had finished answering the question.
oh, did you have more?
I did.
Okay.
I wanted to get into the charges on the card because traveling with her
Such a fucking liar.
is a task. You can probably imagine the attention that happens. So for safety reasons, she would limit her transactions.
What?
Safety
I mean,
reasons.
Imagine trying to walk through an airport or sit at a restaurant or do anything.
All she had to do was put
so
some sort of.
There's no attempt to
Nobody knows
conceal
who this
it's a
woman
credit
is.
card. Everything is here. So
And that's not what I asked.
okay.
What I asked was charges for Belize in March 2023 on that credit card. Those are things you purchased to go with Miss Willis to Belize.
Those are things that we booked with my card that she
Yes.
paid. Yes,
Yes. So those show up on your credit card.
they do.
And you're saying that she paid you cash to reimburse you for all of that.
She did.
And she paid you cash for both of your portions or just hers?
Both.
Okay. So that trip, Belize, just Belize, she paid you for everything on Belize.
The entire trip.
Okay. So the food, tattoo parlor, all that stuff, she paid for.
I'm gonna.
I went and got a tattoo, apparently.
There was no tattoo parlor in Belize. Man.
The charges, there's a tattoo parlor on the charges. I'm not getting into what it was for. I'm just asking if everything that's on that card related to Belize, she paid you back for.
She paid for, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Let's talk about California. In May 2023, you all went to California together
Yes,
and you booked plane tickets.
yes,
And her name was on those plane tickets.
they were.
And so I know you said that you were worried about security and things like that, but that was in her name. When she traveled, she had to use her name.
Oh, so the plane tickets, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you paid for those plane tickets and you paid for a hotel.
So again, the card, yes,
You used your credit card, and I'm not asking about after what happened. I'm asking, did you use your credit card to book your flight and hotel to California?
I did.
And there's a lot of Ubers on there as well for California. Did you pay for those Ubers as well?
Yes,
Did
we were in Napa.
And you're saying that are you saying that Miss Willis paid you back for that?
Yes,
Did she pay for the entire trip or did she pay for her half of the trip?
the Napa trip,
Mhm.
she paid for the excursions. So the expenses sort of balanced out. I mean, there was never, let me be clear, there was never a time when I would say, hey, I bought dinner. Dinner cost $25. You need to give me $25.
Okay.
If you've ever spent any time with Miss Willis, you understand that she's a very independent, proud woman.
I'd object. We're not.
So she's going to
Overruled, Mr. Wade.
so she's going to insist that she carries her own weight. And it actually was a point of contention between the two of us. She is going to pay her own way.
So let me re-ask the question to make sure that you answer it. A California trip that you paid for, are you saying that she did not pay you back for cash? Instead, she paid for excursions and you believe that was roughly half?
You know, she gave me some cash, yes.
She
But
gave you
what I'm
some.
saying is everything that we do.
I love the sass in this case, man. There's so much sass. These attorneys, the way that they talk to each other is like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
don't know that
this guy is dancing around, but now he's starting to talk.
Mm-hmm.
He's starting to talk. And that's good. She's just letting him talk.
Mm-hmm. He keeps on coming up with excuses. That's why I keep on going back to that song. It wasn't me.
Did when we
Wasn't
got
me?
into Napa,
Mhm.
she paid for.
The trip that she booked on her credit card in Miami, did you pay her cash back for your half of that?
No,
So you never paid
No.
her back for the ticket she bought for you?
no. I would say I did pay her back because there were times when I would pay for dinner.
Okay.
She would pay for dinner. It would balance out. But in a relationship, ma'am, you don't, particularly men, we don't go asking back for anything. So you're not keeping a ledger
No,
of
because you're
things that
taking.
you pay for versus the thing that she's paid for. Which is why I said that it was a point of contention because she was very emphatic and adamant about this independent, strong woman thing. So she demanded that she pay her own way.
But she's the district attorney of Fulton County, and she has to file financial disclosures disclosing any gifts with anybody that she does business with in Fulton County, correct?
I don't know.
Okay.
Oh.
Let's talk about Tennessee. You booked a cabin in August 2023 and paid for a cabin in Tennessee. That's when you paid for it. I don't know when the trip was. Can you tell us about that?
August of 2023.
You booked a trip for $1,481.54.
Are you asking me, did I take that trip with Miss Willis, or are you asking me?
First, I was just asking you to acknowledge that that is correct from the records, that you
Oh.
paid for a cabin in Tennessee. Do you recall, and hopefully you can do it from your memory, do you recall paying for a cabin 6 months ago, $1,400.81 in Tennessee?
Where are we now? What page is that?
I'm just asking from your memory. Do you remember paying for a cabin in August?
Your Honor, if
It was just
he's gonna be
last
asked
year.
about a particular transaction.
He can answer whether he remembers or not.
Right. Do you have memory?
Mr. Wade, I'm not asking you to go through 1,000 pages of records. I'm asking if you remember paying for a cabin 6 months ago in Tennessee.
No,
You remember booking a cabin?
I booked lots of cabins.
Jackass.
Did you go to a cabin with Miss Willis ever?
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 Come
Yeah.
on. What an idiot. Ah, this is incredible.
We
No.
can have a whole conversation
Never gone to a
between the
cabin with
questions.
Miss Willis.
No,
You ever gone to Tennessee with Miss Willis?
yes,
Okay. When was that?
August
That
of
When did you
2023.
say that, Cabin?
August of
around
1923.
2022, early 2022.
Early 2022? Okay.
It was a day trip.
Okay. So you didn't spend
We
the
We
night.
went for a booty call to Tennessee.
So it was a day trip.
Okay.
We would drive there, have lunch, drive back.
From Georgia to
The
Tennessee.
reason we would do that is because the
For privacy
attention she
You're a
couldn't get
fucking
purposes.
affair.
peace of mind going locally. So we'd get in my car and drive to
Because I'm a married
place
man.
off the path and have lunch and drive back.
Is that when you went to Fainting Goat with her? I think it's in Jasper, Georgia.
No, that's in Georgia. I don't recall going to Fainting Goat with her.
So the Tennessee day trips were only Tennessee.
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever do these day trips in Georgia?
Did we drive anywhere in Georgia?
Yeah, you were
Of course.
talking about day
Yeah,
trips
we
going
drove-
out, and I'm talking about outside of the metro area. Day trips that you were just talking about. These trips you were talking about. The ones that I'm only asking about the ones you were just talking about. Are all of those in Tennessee?
No, we drove to Alabama before,
Okay.
back.
You drove to Alabama?
Mhm.
Did you go anywhere in
What?
Georgia?
Really?
North Georgia.
I don't know where she's going with that.
Yeah, I'm gonna object. If she wants to direct his attention in some way to a time frame or a location, then I think it might be easier for the
All
witness
right.
to accurately
Ms.
answer.
Merchant, I think if you don't have the specific details yourself,
Mhm.
we need to start getting into specifics or more maybe broadly phrased questions. We can't just be exploring around indefinitely.
Is it fair to say that you've taken so many trips with her, you don't even really remember all the places you've gone?
So many trips.
You're having trouble remembering if you went to North Georgia or not.
Were you asking me about specific places? And I want to be candid in my responses. So I have to jog my memory because these are places that I have frequented, but not with her. So I want to make certain that if there was ever a time that she accompanied me, that I was candid in that response.
Aruba, October 2022. And I've got business record certificate for these, Judge. It might be a little faster. But did you take a trip with her to Aruba in 2022?
Yes, ma'am. So that Aruba trip was, so there was a package deal there. My mother had recently retired, and I decided to take my mother on a cruise.
Okay.
And the second leg after the cruise concluded, DA Willis and I went to Aruba. So that was all one trip, if you will.
Okay. So my question was, did you go with DA Willis to Aruba in 2022?
I did.
Thank you. And you
All
paid
that for
trip
that.
using your business credit card, correct?
I did.
And you paid for a cruise as well, correct?
That's the cruise I was referencing with DA Willis, my mother, and myself.
Okay. And because there's two cruises, so let's just talk about the first one.
Okay.
So the first one was that's the one with your mother.
Yes.
And so you introduced DA Willis to your mother that trip. You all took a cruise together, the three of you.
Yes.
After the cruise was done, you and DA Willis flew to Aruba together, and your mom flew home.
Yes.
And you paid for all of this with your credit card, on your business credit card.
I did.
And are you saying that Miss Willis paid you cash back for that?
She did. Now,
And-
no, but let me make this distinction though. Because the number that you're looking at reflects the 3 people on the cruise ship.
He's going to
There
be
were
in trouble
things
with the
that
IRS.
my mother and I did, just the 2 of us, that DA Willis didn't do.
And I'm not attributing that. I did not, my math is not good, but I did not include anything with your mother on those. Can I show?
You wouldn't be able to see it because it's not separated out. It just shows a charge on the account when actually it would have been something with my mother and I.
Judge, may I approach with exhibits 10 and 11? They're both certified business records. One's from Vacation Express, one's from,
I thought 10 was taxes.
I'm sorry, 11 and 12. Yeah, approach, Judge.
Okay.
Thank you. And these are business records, Judge. They have the certification, so I need to admit them.
All right, defense 11 and 12. Ms. Cross?
Based on Ms. Merchant's representation that they are true and accurate as to the certification that was provided to her, we have no.
All right, again, seeing no other objection there, admitted.
So just the trip to Aruba alone for you and DA Willis was $3,835.26, correct? Just Aruba.
I'm looking for the amount.
Exhibit. She's questioning about 11 or 12.
This one is 11.
Yes, ma'am. $3,835.26.
And then the Royal Caribbean for just you and Miss Willis was $1,269.70, correct?
No, ma'am.
Your mother's got a different line item on there.
Mm.
I'm talking about the cruise, the actual cruise cabin.
I think you need to rephrase that as in the form of a question, Ms. Merchant.
Did you pay Royal Caribbean for yours and Miss Willis's cabin $1,269.70?
Where are we? Which page?
We're on the receipts. There's just a few pages of receipts on exhibit number 11.
Okay. I'm in 11. Can you direct me to where you are on in exhibit 11?
Royal Caribbean. So we've got your flights on the one page, which I already asked you about for Aruba. And then. And just for the record, I blacked out their dates of birth. And then Royal Caribbean may be on. Oh, it's small. It's hard to read. Very hard to read. So let me just. You recall paying around $1,269.70 for a Royal Caribbean cruise for you and Miss Willis. You don't remember that?
I, that amount seems kind of small. I don't, I think it
Okay,
was,
so you believe it was higher?
Yeah.
Okay. While you were in Aruba, then you bought a cruise, a Norwegian cruise, right? And that was the New Year's Eve cruise?
while I was in Aruba, no ma'am.
The credit card documents that were admitted earlier show the purchase date when you were in Aruba, but you don't remember doing that in Aruba?
I didn't purchase a cruise while I was in Aruba. That may be when the cruise company decided to run the invoice, but I didn't purchase a cruise in Aruba, no ma'am.
Around the time you went to Aruba, you purchased a cruise for Norwegian for you and Miss Willis to take for New Year's, correct?
Before I went to Aruba, yes ma'am.
And that was roughly $3,387. The cruise to Aruba. I mean, the Norwegian cruise.
So that cruise was with my sisters.
Okay.
And the number that you are seeing would reflect my buying dinner for my sisters and their husbands, or
I'm just
me.
talking about the cruise, the amount that was paid for the cruise ahead of time when you booked the cruise. I'm just talking about that.
Okay.
That was a little over $3,000.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, and I understand you're saying you paid for other things, but I'm just talking about the cruise amount. And you paid for a Jeep and you paid for dinner while you were there in Bahamas.
Yes, ma'am.
That's the one that Miss Willis paid for a flight for, correct?
That's one of the flights she paid for. Yes, ma'am.
Actually, a documented paid for, not cash. I'm talking about a non-cash transaction. That's what she paid for.
You mean the one that I provided the receipt for?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. That's that.
And so she booked that on her credit card and wasn't worried about, I know you said earlier that you were booking everything because she was worried about people knowing where she was traveling. She didn't have any fears booking that one though, correct?
I'm gonna object to the phrasing of that question, to speculate as to what was the motivation of the district attorney. If she wants to ask if that was the transaction, then he can respond if that was a transaction.
Ms. Merchant, I think you can rephrase the question, but I'll sustain it on the current phrasing.
So she purchased that under her own name, correct?
She did.
Let's see. So I know we talked a little bit about the seminar where you all met. Isn't it true that you would go to Miss Willis's house in South Fulton County
I've never
occasionally?
I've never gone to her house in South Fulton County.
You've never gone to her house in South
I've
Fulton?
never seen her house. The first time I even heard the address of that house was when one of the individuals in the election fraud case somehow doxed it and it got out. That was the first time I'd even seen that address.
But you would go to the East Point condo, correct?
What East Point condo?
East Point, Hapeville, something like that.
I've never been to East Point with Miss Willis.
You've never gone to a condo in either the East Point or Hapeville area with Miss Willis.
Wait, that's different. I have gone to a condo in Hapeville.
Okay. So Hapeville.
Yes, ma'am.
So you have gone to a condo with Miss Willis in Hapeville.
I have.
Have you spent the night there?
Never.
Never spent the night.
Never.
Is that the condo that was rented by Robin Yurdy?
I believe it was.
And other members of the DA staff were there as well, correct? Sometimes.
I've never been around other members of the DA staff at a condo in Hapeville.
There's never been any security for Miss Willis?
Not around me.
Did you ever ride with Miss Willis with her security detail to and from the house?
No.
You served on Miss Willis's transition team, correct?
Yes.
And you were part of all of her interviews where she interviewed and re-interviewed employees?
I would say probably 98, 99% of them, yes.
Is it fair to say you took an active role in these interviews?
Yes, ma'am.
Prior to this, you'd never worked at a DA's office, right?
Have I ever worked in her DA's office?
At
No,
a
ma'am.
DA's office, any DA's office.
No, ma'am.
Have you ever managed a large law firm or a
Your
large?
Honor, I'm going to object to the relevance of these questions.
Ms. Merchant.
He served on her transition team. And so, I mean, what we're trying to prove is that there's a personal and financial relationship and that it was improper. And so, whether or not he had experience to serve on this transition team, I think is relevant.
Right. I think I already said that we don't need the evidentiary
Okay.
hearing on that point.
I'll
So
move on.
that's sustained.
Terrence Bradley also received a contract for Fulton County, correct? Correct.
You're asking me about Terrence?
I asked if Terrence Bradley also received a contract for Fulton County.
I believe that he did.
And you were partners with him at that time, correct?
I was.
So under what you testified to earlier, you would get a third of that contract as well, correct?
I would have.
And Chris Campbell also had a contract with Fulton County.
I believe he did.
And so under what you've testified to, you would also get a third of that, correct?
I would.
They both had contracts for what are called first appearance, which is where they would appear on behalf of the district attorney to do first appearance hearings, correct?
I believe they did.
Okay. And they also had what's called a taint contract. They
Ah.
both entered into them January 25th, 2021, correct?
Filter, yes, ma'am.
Taint or filter.
Yes, ma'am.
And that was for work in the anti-corruption unit?
I don't know that it was anti-corruption. I think that it was civil rights, maybe.
And Judge, the DAs or Fulton County's come and I guess brought a certificate now. So we would move to admit the contracts. I've got those under that certificate. I was planning on doing it under the open records officer, but I believe now they've certified it. I haven't looked at everything they've certified though. So
I'm going to
Alright.
ask that the document be looked at and confirmed prior to its surrender.
All right, Ms. Merchant, is there anything else? What other areas were you planning to cover on his direct other than these documents?
I'm planning on introducing all of the contracts and invoices, but I haven't had a chance to look at what Fulton County certified. So I'm planning on introducing those and then not much.
Can we do the not much?
Hmm?
And then we'll do the not much and then we'll get back to the contracts.
Okay, yeah, definitely. Okay, so this taint contract, and we're not admitting these right now, but if I represent to you that they say anti-corruption unit, can you tell us what a taint attorney for an anti-corruption unit would do?
I didn't have a part in those contracts. ma'am.
They were your partners at the time though, correct?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. And so you didn't have a part in those contracts, but you got a third of the contract payment.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So the taint contracts that Bradley and Campbell, who are your law partners at the time, had for doing taint review, you got a third of those.
Yes, ma'am.
You signed a confidentiality agreement with the DA's office as well, correct?
I did.
And I think I'm up to Judge 13. Marking that as number 13. No. May I approach, Judge?
You may.
Showing you a copy of what I marked as number 13. If you could take a look at that and tell me if that is the confidentiality agreement that you signed with the district attorney.
It is.
And this basically says you can't talk about anything that happens inside of the DA's office, right?
No,
It doesn't say you can't talk about it?
no. You said it basically says that I can't talk about anything that happens inside the DA's office, and that's not what.
Are you tendering this exhibit? Ms.
I am,
Merchant?
yes. We would tender 13.
Ms. Cross.
Fail to see the relevance, so I'd lodge a relevance objection, but otherwise nothing else.
Ms. Merchant, relevance of this?
Judge, it's relevant to his testimony. If he signed an agreement that says he can't talk about things that happen in the district attorney's office, I think that's relevant to this. I also think
How?
that because it's motivation in his testimony. I mean, whether or not he's going to testify to something. It's also
not-
been certified. I mean, it's part of the record as from what Fulton County gave us.
Sure, but he hasn't said that that's preventing him from testifying in any way today, is it?
So, and I can ask him about that.
Okay,
Yeah.
Mr. Wade, is this confidential agreement affecting your testimony today?
No, sir.
All right, that's fine.
All
The contracts judge, and the invoices that I wanted to admit all of his invoices and contracts with, Fulton County. I have them certified. I guess I have them certified through Fulton County, so I wasn't sure if I needed to do that. I just wanted to know if the state had an objection to those before.
Well, they haven't had, I don't think they've had a chance to look at them. So that's the sole remaining exhibit in line of questioning here?
Yes.
And in terms of the follow-up questions, would it just be for him to say what's reflected in these documents themselves?
If they have an objection to the certificates that Fulton County has given, I would admit them through him because he could recognize
Right,
them.
but assuming they're admitted, would there actually be anything substantive he would add other than the documents themselves? All right. Okay, so subject to that qualification, do you have any other questions of this witness?
May I just have a moment?
Sure.
Thank you. Is it possible actually we take a quick break?
We're getting there.
Okay. Thank you.
And Your Honor, we certainly had the opportunity over lunch to take a look at these documents and work out whatever we could.
Did you discuss your relationship with Miss Willis in social settings?
Help me understand your question.
Did you discuss your relationship with Miss Willis in social settings?
No, I heard the question. I just need to understand what you're asking me. Like,
Like, did
what
you
what
talk-
relationship when?
Your personal relationship with Miss Willis, unqualified, I'm sorry. Did you discuss your personal relationship, your private, personal, romantic relationship with Miss Willis in social settings?
No, ma'am.
You've never discussed it in social settings?
No, ma'am.
Did you ever discuss it in front of Robin Yurdy in a non-social setting?
No, ma'am. Miss Willis is a very, as am I, we're private people. Not our relationship wasn't a secret. It was just private. So not at all. I wouldn't have discussed my relationship with Miss Yurdy or anyone else publicly.
Okay, I actually did have some questions just about the invoices, if we want to just,
These are the documents that you're referring to.
yeah, they are. It's all of his invoices. I
And
mean,
what kind of questions would these be other than the invoices say what they say?
it just that, yes, that they say what they say.
All right.
Just
any other
talk about them.
questions?
That's fine. No,
All right.
thank you.
All right. At this point, we'll take a break. I'll ask the parties to take a look at. What had you marked that as a defense exhibit?
I have his contracts and his invoices that I'm about to mark. So before he leaves me, I just want to make sure that the state doesn't have any objections.
Or those are marked as,
They're-
Unmute my mic. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, I guess we're probably going to call it a night. I think that last question that she asked, or the second to last question that she asked about whether he discussed his relationship in social settings, I think he lied there, because it's not so much that the way he answered that question was, well, it's not that we were being secretive or that the relationship was a secret. It's just that we're private people. I think that was like the most ridiculous thing for him to say, because obviously he's having an affair. Obviously it is a secret. People didn't know that they were having a relationship, except for maybe just a few people in their inner circle. So I think she was trying to introduce evidence that other people might have known about the relationship and when they would have known the relationship occurred, but I guess I could be wrong about that. Anyway, I think I'm gonna put it a pause right now. My partner had to take a phone call and she's not back. This is a good place to kind of take a break and we can discuss more about this case next week. We've got 2 weeks break between now and when the judge comes up with his decision on this case after final arguments happened today. And man, those were rough. I quite blanked out whenever the state was giving their final arguments, but they had talked about things that I don't really understand just yet. So that's why I'm kind of going back and watching these from its entirety so that I can get the full picture. Because the only thing that happens in the news is the snippets and the bits, and you don't really get a lot of context. So, well, I hope you guys enjoyed our little chat. Wasn't quite as entertaining as the first one, but tune in next week. We might have some better material because he was kind of difficult to listen to. Next week, I think we're going to be hitting Willis's testimony, and that one was apparently. We'll see. I'm going to finish my Beano, and then I'm going to head on to Betty Bye. So, night, y'all.